Hey, welcome to Guitar Knobs, the guitars, gear, noise, and nonsense podcast, hosted today by these knobs.
Tony Dudzik, pick Guardian.
Jared Brandon Wound pickups.
Hey everybody, it's me, Todd Novak. Welcome to the Guitar Knobs podcast. We are thrilled to death that you are listening to our show with us right now, wherever you are. Feel like we're there. Just feel it, man. Yep. On the line, we've got somebody really special tonight. Who is you, Mr. Special?
It's the mystery guest. I'm Sully.
Yay!
Sully of Sully Guitars. We're really happy you're joining us tonight. We've heard great things about you. We've seen great things about your guitars, and you have no shortage of people who seem to love them. So this should be for a lot of fun.
Well, that is very nice. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Now, you're not the guy that landed the plane on the Hudson River, are you?
I am, yes.
And you make guitars. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Right, yes. And I'm also like 400 guys in Boston.
Yeah.
Yet I'm not in Boston.
Right.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, boy. Although
Okay, thanks,
More Than
everybody.
a Feeling was really great. You did a great job with that.
Thank you.
Whoa, boy. We're off to a really hot start, everybody. Hey,
There we go.
Mr. Baloney, what do we do on the show,
Yes.
buddy?
Well, we like to talk about gear, and we like to talk to makers of gear, and I think specifically boutique gear. And that would be stuff like, guitars and amps and pedals and
Oh, my.
all the good stuff, accessories. We've had some good stuff, and we do the occasional 101 that is perhaps Jared's most favorite type of podcast.
Probably.
Why, Jared?
Because you get to learn things that you just didn't know before.
Yeah.
And you get to find out new stuff. You're like, well, I thought it was this way, but it's really the other way.
Yeah.
Because usually we talk to an expert in that field.
Yeah. We have a good one coming up, actually, real soon.
Let's do it. Yep.
Yeah, very excited about that.
I like that.
Can't wait to meet him.
Yeah, well, you have met him. He's a returning guest. So I'll just leave that there. Hey, everybody, we are going to have a great time, and we're going to learn a lot of things about Sully, and we're going to have some fun. We got a couple things to announce really quick. Number one, you need to go to Instagram right now. I would suggest that's, where it's the most color. It's the land of beautiful pictures. And go, where can they go to see your stuff, Sully?
Oh, gosh. If only there were a place. SullyGuitars.com, Instagram @SullyGuitars, Facebook @SullyGuitars. You can see them in person at a few dealers. That's also fun. At the Guitar Sanctuary in McKinney, Texas, which is delightful. Also, Lark Guitars in San Antonio. We're always adding, and we've just brought on a new dealer in Massachusetts, the Guitar Pedal Shop, and so that's good.
Cool.
So a lot of places.
Awesome.
My mom's house might be one or two.
Excellent. Great. Now, so while you're listening, why don't you just pull that up maybe on Instagram and check out some of the beautiful guitars that this fella makes. In the meantime, we got a couple of announcements. We need to thank Rode mics for providing our Rodecaster Pro, this amazing device that is capturing our podcast week after week after week after week. I'll stop there. And also the Procaster mics. These are our little babies, and we are grateful to Rode for providing these to us and for being just generally awesome people. Like, we actually have people that we talk to regularly. The Nicks.
Yes.
The two Nicks.
Nick and Nick.
So, hi, Nick and Nick. Hopefully we get to meet you guys someday, even though you're on literally the bottom of the world on the other side. But maybe someday.
Well, that could be a legitimate tax write-off,
Probably.
Sure. Not on my dime, it's not. Anyhow, so wanted to give a big thanks to them for that. I also wanted to share something. I got we always ask, hey, people send us your mails and your thoughts and tell us what's going on. And we got a message from a fella named Brad Fowler. And he says, hey, Knobs, first of all, I don't have a 4 on the floor. I'm a straight up beginner. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
He said, long story short, and I've had to edit this down just a little bit, just, to make it compact here. He says, long story short, I was a successful professional trumpet player and brass repair tech and customizer. Didn't even know you could customize his trumpets, but apparently he did that.
Oh, yeah.
And then he said, and then COVID, and poof, no more of that. Okay, right. Well, that's a bummer. I said, so I got on other work as one does, but I really missed playing music. I've always loved me a Les Paul, so I got an Epiphone Standard Pro. It's beautiful, and a Katana 50 MK2. I totally suck. Hey, we all got to start somewhere. Nobody, very few people, I won't say nobody, very few people start out being awesome. Tony might be one of those people.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes. He says, I'm getting better, but waiting for my technique to catch up with my musical ability, says parentheses, fingers tapping. Anyway, you guys have been helping me helping me keep sane and inspire me to practice this thing every day. I'm hoping someday I can become a fez-wearing executive producer. Hey, we do too. Well, stay cool. Best to all of you and your important ones. And thank you one more time for the inspiratainment or the entspiration. So, yeah, he likes this ridiculous stuff like us. Thanks again, Brad Fowler. Thank you, Brad Fowler, for sending that in and reminding us that, everybody starts somewhere. And if you get bored, start back at the beginning. You'll probably get better. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
I guess.
I guess.
I guess.
Yeah. Sully, is that, have you ever gone back to the start and just said, hey, I got to redo my beginning lick stuff?
Yeah, there have been some times. There have been points in my life when there's always like these certain solos that like you kind of learn about 70% of the way, and then you kind of fake the rest of it because maybe that's a little too hard for you to imagine right now, or you can't quite get it down, so you just kind of slop through it. So yeah, I have gone back. Usually with like Randy Rhoads stuff, I'll break things down measure by measure, and then just get real insane about it.
Right,
yeah,
right. I liked how you started going back to the beginning with Randy Rhoads. Nice one.
Randy is my favorite guitar player ever.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, he's also probably the reason he's the reason that I wanted to get good at playing guitar. He wasn't the reason why I started playing. It inspired me to get good, and also his guitars were a very big inspiration for me in being a guitar builder.
Oh yeah, I mean, he always had it's the coolest looking stuff, man.
Yes, agreed. Agreed.
Well, cool. Let's see. We already learned something about Mr. Sully. Everybody, look at that.
That's all you get. I'm just kidding.
Did you have what was your favorite model of his?
Yeah, it's the white prototype Jackson Rhodes with the pinstripes.
Right. With that's the offset V.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Super cool.
That is my absolute favorite guitar on the planet. If I had $1 million bajillion and that guitar was for sale for $1 million bajillion, I would give it to whoever had that happily.
Oh, I have a buddy that has one it's not American made, but I believe I want to say it's either Korean or Japan.
It's probably Scottish.
It could be. There's no plaid on it, but it's got those pinstripes, and it's an offset V, and it is a Jackson.
Yeah, and it's white.
Yeah, it's not USA, but that's white. It's got the gold hardware.
That's a Randy Rhoads model.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. They do the pinstripes on a few different. I'm a bit of a Jackson. I'm a Jackson screw counter. Yeah, huge. Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, right on. So there's that, everybody. We're going to get into what's going on in our music world this week. We're going to just learn a little tiny bit about each of our musical endeavors this week. We're going to start off with Tony and then check in with Sully.
Okay, that sounds good. Are you going to ask me what's going on in my
music world? On in your musical world this week, you big piece of meat?
Thank you. Well, let's see. I guess this is a good one. I picked up a really cool book called Guitar Family Trees. the history of the world's most iconic guitars.
Ooh.
And yeah, it's half price books, probably my favorite place.
Oh yeah.
But what's really cool about this, it goes, most of the major brands are represented, and it's got these like fold out sections. Like Fender has this page that opens up and it turns into this giant poster of, from the beginning models. Actually, on the Fender one, they actually start with the Bigsby Merle Travis guitar as the inspiration for the broadcaster. And then, it's just like a chart, basically has pictures of all the guitars, and it's really, I have to check it for accuracy, of course, but it looks really well thought out. And I particularly like that. My only critique about it is if you open those fold out sections enough, they start to get a little bit flimsy.
Yeah.
And terry.
Yeah.
And but other than that, it's a very cool book. And I just, I like me some guitar books.
Yeah. Now, is the Fender section stapled and the Gibson section glued?
No, they use bolts in the Fender section.
Oh,
No,
boy.
I liked it. It was clever.
Oh, thank you, Jared. I appreciate that. 1 point, full point.
Clever.
Begin.
Clever girl.
Sully, how about yourself?
Musically, well, I've actually spent the past couple days listening to a record by a lady named Jay Som. It's Jay, and last name is spelled SOM. And it's, it's just kind of quiet. It's just nice. There's a scene in the movie High Fidelity where the guys are opening up the record store. And this was very relatable because I worked in a bunch of record stores, and they've just got, they're listening to Belle and Sebastian, and it's really quiet and it's just kind of nice. And then, Jack Black comes busting in with Katrina and the Waves and just kind of disrupting everything. And he's just like, I just want to hear something I can ignore. And now that's not why I like this. I'm not ignoring it, but it's very quiet. It kind of gives me that same feeling in that it's good, calming kind of good music to sand to, because I do a lot of that. I've been listening to a lot, like her record a couple times today, and then Night Dreamers EP I really enjoy.
Oh yeah.
And Jeff sent me a song that I don't think has been released yet, that he recorded with, going back to Randy, with the Sully Concord, and it's really fun and
cool.
Yeah. And then I've also been listening to a band called Bones UK. And that's like my favorite record of the past, I don't know, it's been out for a year. So it's there. Do you listen to that Jeff Beck record called Loud Hailer? I
am not familiar with that one.
Okay. Well, it's not like Jeff Beck being out there and, some people love Jeff Beck. I love Jeff Beck. Some people don't necessarily appreciate him, but Jeff did this record with Rosie and Carmen, who are in Bones UK, and it's kind of like if you could imagine Jeff Beck doing a Rage Against the Machine album.
Wow,
it's great. It came out in 2016. I cannot recommend it enough.
Check it out.
It's really good. It's called Loud Hailer, and so it's those two ladies who did that record with him, and then they toured with him. And so Bones UK is their band, and it's gritty. It's great rock. It's futuristic. It's really, 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 really good. My highlight of NAMM was seeing them play at the Korg booth. It was so much fun.
Wow, right on. That's quite an endorsement. I think they're going to see a spike in their Spotify numbers and make $5.
Sure.
Cool. Well, that's cool. That's mighty fine. Jared, how about yourself?
It's been a really good week. It's a very good learning week. So there's another pickup winder out in Washington. His name is Wolf McLeod, and we've all met him at NAMM. You guys have met him. Mm-hmm. And he's really good at figuring out winders with little computer programs and all that kind of thing. I'm really good at the mechanical operated winders, and he's pretty good at both. So I begged him for about a year to come out. I don't remember how long I've had this machine, maybe 2 or 3 years, but it's done nothing but sat and collect dust. So he finally came out. I got him to come out, and he's been here all week. And now I feel confident and trained on my machine because of Wolf. He makes really, really great pickups.
Right.
They're put together meticulously, the way they're wound, and he's very, very meticulous and nitpicky about his product, which is a very good quality to have. They're extremely consistent. So check out Wolf Tone.
Yes. And you're sure he wasn't a character on the Rockford Files, right?
He was not on the Rockford Files. No.
Does he make new pickups that look old and old pickups that look new?
Yeah, actually,
only Jared does that.
No, he does. He's got some good aging techniques too.
Nice.
So check out Wolf Tone if you don't want to buy mine. No, seriously, I'm forever grateful for him. He's been a good friend, and he's been a lot of help. So he's gonna leave in the morning, and
yeah, I think he owes you about $20 now.
So I took him out, and for the fun part. So here in Columbus, Ohio, there's a restaurant called the Thurman Cafe, and it's on Thurman Street.
Yeah, it's been on like loads of TV shows.
Yeah, it's on the TV shows, Man versus Food, or Drivers Drive-Ins and Dives, with what's his name, that guy for Ferrari or whatever his name is. Yeah. So we went in there, and I'm like, Wolf, I bet you cannot eat the biggest burger they have to serve here. I bet you can't do it. Knowing he could, right? But of course, I'm acting like that, so he does it. He's like, yeah, give me the biggest thing you got. And they bring it to him, and he sees it, and immediately he reminded me of myself when you first lay eyes on it. You're like, oh yeah, I can eat that. And he did. It only took him 19 minutes to finish this challenge, and he had extra food beyond that.
It's about a foot high, isn't it? It's at least a foot high.
It's huge. It's enormous. You can't just squeeze it down and eat it like a burger. He knife and forked the whole thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a gargantuan.
That's classy.
Yeah. I don't even know. I mean, it made me sick looking at it. It's a burger that is a foot high, everybody.
It's like 4 burgers. You can make 4 regular hamburgers out of it.
With onion rings and French fries and bacon, and it's like everything.
All the stuff,
It's
and
ridiculous.
ham and cheese.
Yeah.
So it's a really good time having him here. So
yeah, he's going to have to get roto-rooted.
Yeah.
Jeez. All right. Well, that's cool.
Yeah. Great dude.
For my week.
How about you, Todd?
Thank you, Tony. I love the Cars. I just have always loved the Cars. They've got an emotional place in my heart. I never get tired of listening to the Cars. All right. So Elliot Easton was responsible for some of the tastiest little guitar licks. It's pop rock, and it's feel good, and you love it, and it's great stuff. And he's not like widely recognized, but man, one thing I kind of found out is I was like, I want to learn the solo to Just What I Needed, because if that's not one of my favorite solos of all time, I don't know, I just love it. So I started looking around. I was like, well, I'm going to get some tab or just listen, see how some people are doing it that have figured it out. And
I did.
Every single one of those people, almost every single one that I was listening to, said the same thing. It's one of their all-time favorites, and he is an unsung guitar genius, right? And whether you believe that or not, just the fact that so many people were saying that, it made me feel good. Just like, yeah, get the guy some recognition.
And he's a lefty.
And he's a lefty. Yeah. So everything we're hearing is backwards, which is, imagine what it would sound like forward. It would be even. Anyways.
He's got an awesome signature Gibson Custom Shop SG.
Oh, yeah.
I believe it's the Pelham Blue, if if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Well, he's got a black one too. Anyways.
And he also has a Firebird called the Tiki Bird.
Yeah. Ooh. So anyways, that was my week. I just said, hey, I'm gonna take a break from doing my music, and I'm gonna learn some cool stuff that might be a little challenging. So there, that's what I did, and it was a blast. I loved it. You know what else is a blast?
How did it come out?
I'm still working on it.
Oh, okay.
I'm impatient. I get the stuff and I'm like, yeah, and it sounds like this. And I'm like, crap, now I got to learn the rest.
Hey, you know what else we're working on?
This.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3. 4 on the floor.
Okay. Our 4 on the floor is sponsored by Tour Gear Designs. Our recent guest, Marco, who is the co-founder of Tour Gear, he was a great guest, and his actual pedal cables are that much better.
I actually bought a bunch of those, and they are a dream to work with. They're awesome.
They really
Got
are.
them in?
Cool. They come in 3-inch, 4-inch, 6-inch, 8-inch, 10-inch, and they're even working on like a 24-inch one right now. I think it's about 24. So they're deciding on how long it's going to be, but it's going to be long. And the unique thing about these is that the actual footprint of them is about the size of the actual diameter of the jack. This is very small, people, and they are built very well. We highly recommend these. Check out tourgeardesigns.com. Glad to have them along on the show and sponsoring our 4 on the floor. Speaking of 4 on the floor, Sully, you ready?
I am.
Cool.
Yeah. So my 4 on the floor, it's real straight ahead. It's 4 Boss HM2s plugged into one another into a Gorilla G20.
Oh my goodness.
Awesome.
It is the angriest of angry bees. No, seriously. I unfortunately, here's where I feel really bad, because I'm really not like a gearhead guy, which is, I get it. It's strange, but like I love guitars, and like guitars have always been my main focus, but I've never really had a whole bunch of pedals. And like all the amps that I would have, like when I was in bands, there was always another guitar player who was super into that. So it was, I'd be like, so go ahead and just dial something in for me. And it was fun. But I will say that a few years ago, along with, with what I do of building guitars, sometimes we do classes. One year, one day, a few years ago, a buddy of mine, we did a pedal building class. And, we just did, the BYO kits. And however, we had custom enclosures silk screened with some fun art and a little flaming taco drawn on there, because that's fun. And I love that overdrive pedal. It's based on a tube screamer, but it's got some mods that if you reminded me of what they were, I still wouldn't know what they were, but it's a little bit different, and I do really like it. There are a few like pedals that I would really like, but I would probably need to have someone show me how to use them. One is the Electro Harmonics POG, or POG. I don't know. It's like ALF in POG forms, and it's got like that cool, like it seems like it's got like all kinds of crazy octavey stuff, and I really like that sort of thing. So that would be fun for me to play around with. I kind of want one of those Headrush gig boards, but that to me seems a little overwhelming, although I know that they're very user friendly, and people that I know that are not super, they're not dial tweakers, or they're not tweakers in any kind. And, they say, oh, I've got them and I really like them. So that's good.
The whole pedal board?
Yeah. Like the Headrush gig board, it's like a little guy, and it's got, it's got like all of the, it's kind of like a multi.
Oh yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. So it's great for like a fly gig or something like that.
Yeah.
For what I do and for the amount of playing that I do, that sort of thing would be good. Although I have to give it up to the only amp that I had for a long time. I've got a really nice one now that I love, and thank you, Victory Amplifiers. I love you dearly. The Roland Micro Cube. It's the coolest thing. And it's got all these little built-in effects. So like if you wanted to play Bark at the Moon with the proper amount of chorus and enough reverb on there, you can. And so I think that's really good.
It's the only amp with a Jakey Lee setting.
For now, although I think he's got a signature amp with Friedman, but it's not a setting. It's just an amp. So yes, I'm sorry. I failed you all.
So what about number 4?
There's something that Victory does in that with all of their amps, they have like preamp, like the preamps of each amp, like in a pedal. So if you have one, you can get all of these other preamps pedals that are essentially that amp in a pedal. Like everybody's like, yes, dude, we know. But I've always thought that was really cool because I've got one of them, but there are certain other ones that I would like to have too. So I think that's really cool.
Okay.
Yeah, I know it's really anticlimactic. I'm sorry.
I think that made it all worthwhile. The fact that you actually said that. So.
Yeah. No, I knew it going in. This is going to be a nightmare. Sorry, guys.
Yeah. Well, we thank you for sharing that. Everybody isn't that comes on isn't the biggest pedal hoarder or anything like that. And we've had some people just flat out say, yeah, I don't want to do that.
Yeah. Okay.
So we appreciate you playing along. It's been fun.
Right. It's strange because like a lot of some of my favorite like guitar moments, I can think of 2 are courtesy of pedals. And, and then I think to myself, well, why don't I go and get whatever pedal that Johnny Marr was using for How Soon Is Now? And then I can do that. And then I'm like, well, because who has the time? But clearly Johnny Marr did, and many others do. So yeah, I'm in the wrong. And it's one of the reasons that I'm a terrible person.
I like the fact that you referenced Johnny Marr. Gosh, one of my favorites. Absolutely.
Wonderful.
Gosh. It's remarkable what that guy's able to do.
I couldn't agree more.
Okay, well, we're going to get on to the reason that we have you on the show, the big fat interview. Before we do, we need to give a shout out to John Finnell, our illustrious keeper of our whatever the studio looks like at this point. I'm not really sure whenever we get to go back to it. And John is an extraordinary engineer, producer, and masterer of music. He really understands guitar tone and is very interested in trying to make sure that he gets the guitar tone that you are hearing in your head as well as in your ears. Because I think for a lot of us who are playing guitar, that's the thing that we're fighting the entire time we're doing is like, I hear the sound in my head. I'm trying to get it out of my gear. And that's why a lot of reasons why we switch gear so much, because we're trying to find that elusive sound, and he's really good at helping you do that. So check out johnfintel.com, JONFINTEL.com, and he's out of Relay Recording, relayrecording.com. He did my latest album, and it just brings tears to my eyes and raises my arm hair up while I'm driving. It's pretty neat to watch, actually. I should film that so y'all can see that. It's the only hair I have that'll stand up, and he's hey, okay, so we got John Sullivan, Sully Guitars, from sullyguitars.com. You can go there and check it out right now, or again, check it out on Instagram. And we're going to find out all about what he has to offer, how he began offering it, and other little useless tidbits that help put the sprinkle on the donut, as it were. Easy, Jared. So, John, you've done this rodeo a few times. You had your own podcast. You had a YouTube channel. So you've gone through the whole like, hey, this is where I started, right?
Yeah. Yes. And over the years, I've been trying to whittle it down to like a sizable kind of chunk.
Okay. Well, through that whittling, why don't you give us what you think might be a tasty tidbit of how you got started in this?
Well, I can say that I started playing guitar when I was 8, and my sister had an acoustic guitar that was given to her by my uncle. She was supposed to learn she was going to take lessons. She never did. I heard My Sharona and I thought it was like the coolest thing. So I stole that guitar and I wanted to learn how to play. And the one thing that was wrong with it is that there was a chip in the nut that was, so a chunk of the nut was taken out, and that piece that was missing held the B string in place. So you could kind of put it in what was left of that nut slot and try and hit a note, and then all of a sudden it would come and just, it would fall out, and that was bad. So I, went to the 8 or 9 year old that I was I was 8, went to the junk drawer in the kitchen, grabbed a hammer, grabbed a little nail, and I made essentially a string retainer. And I hammered that into the headstock, and that kept the string in the nut slot. Now, I don't exactly know how I got that idea. I've blanked out a whole bunch of my childhood. We won't talk about that. You're welcome. But, and I'm not, I wasn't generally a handy person until then. And so, since then, I've always had a guitar around me. And, I grew up in the 80s, and all of the bands that I liked, they all played custom guitars. When I got my first electric, which was, I was 12, and that was a company called Maxitone. And that was in the 60s when like the Ibanez factory was like making a whole bunch of just kooky 60s kinds of guitars. And I remember I with a Sharpie, I wrote Sully Strat Custom on it.
Whoa.
Yeah. So like Sully guitars has like always been a thing, which is really, really, really weird. And so I was very interested in that culture growing up, and, everybody had custom guitars. It was kind of part of what you saw. And the music store that I live nearby, in suburban Lombard, Illinois, the guy that was the cool guy that you took lessons from. He grew up with Glenn Tipton of Judas Priest. He made parts guitars, and and I used to just hang out at their store when he got his own store, and it was right down the street from me. And I used to hang out there like a stray cat. And I would just watch him do repairs, and he would always, answer questions or talk to me like I knew what I was talking about, or, like I knew what he was talking about. And I had no idea, but that was really fostered. And, I eventually started working on stuff for my friends in high school, and, and I started eventually making like my own parts guitars in 2001, just out of prefab, bodies and necks that you get on eBay or whatever. And, eventually started cutting bodies from scratch, and then still using like a Warmoth neck or something. And then, eventually, went all scratch. And, a lot of what helped me along the way then, in, 2000, 2001, 2002, are a lot of the things that people, use now, in that, the power of the internet. I was very active on the Jackson Guitars forum, and there was a tech forum in there. And so, I'd read and learn, and, buy books and do all that stuff. And I never really had someone, show me how to do all this stuff. It was a lot of reading and a lot of trial and error, And around 2003 or so, I started, making guitars for people here and there. I still had a day job.
What was that day job?
At the time, I did a lot of what I did involved working as like management in like call centers. I worked for like what became AT&T. Well, it was like Singular, and so I worked in like the cell industry. And it was a decent gig. So that's kind of what I did for quite some time. I just kept doing it and kept making stuff and messing things up, and you keep going forward. And, again, with on the internet, and this is one of those things, people will post pictures of what they're working on, and, a lot of times photos look great, and a lot of times photos can be deceiving.
Yeah.
And,
yeah.
But eventually, I just kept working and making stuff. And eventually I got to the point where I had to quit my day job, and I'm, glossing over just like a whole bunch just for, to try and,
Sure.
not, yeah. But I went full time. Let's see, I burned the khakis on October 1st of 2014.
Well put.
Yeah. May I never wear pants again. And so, so I've been doing it full time since then. And I, for a long time, for years before then, I definitely had more work than I could handle. And that's kind of one of the double-edged sword aspect of being like a one-man shop is, there's only so many things you can get done in a year. And then when you've got, a day job, that obviously, cuts into your available time. And
Right.
Once I kind of learned that you could do, teach, guitar building classes and kind of treat it as kind of like a summer camp. It's one of those things where it's more bucket list rock and roll fantasy camp than Roberto Venn or any of the other like Lutherie schools where you spend thousands of dollars and you get essentially trained to do the job. This is, want to make a body and a neck? Come on, you're going to do a lot of sanding and it'll be fun. And you'll leave, with a completed instrument with the exception of paint.
Yeah.
But that definitely helped, that helps the income stream because you got to have, multiple streams and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I've been building. Geez, I mean, it just seems like, I've been doing this in one way or the other since I was 8.
That's pretty fantastic, man. Another byproduct of sanding, everybody, is that you get really good at the bossa nova. All right. So, Tony, nothing really? Come on.
I won't. I thought you were going to say one of the byproducts of sanding is sand.
No.
Dust.
Yes.
No.
And dust.
A lot of dust.
Yes. Oh, okay. I see what you're doing over there. You got sound effects now. Jeez. He always likes to try to touch the sound effects pads on the road over here, and I have to slap his hand. Get out of there.
I got my own.
Yeah.
Nice.
So let's talk about, thank you for the backstory. I think that was a great way for kind of people to get into, where your head is at and how long you've been doing it and what kind of, expertise you're bringing to the table. Now, when it comes to your actual guitars, you're not really playing it super safe here.
I think it depends on who you ask.
Okay.
And what, it's kind of in the eye of the person that's saying that. I like to think that what I do is because, I came from, pointy guitars. That's truly what makes me happy. And when we talked earlier about, Randy Rhoads and that sort of thing, that is my favorite guitar. And like that, if someone brought to me like an 83 or an 84 Rhoads, like a Rhoads custom, not a student model. I want shark fins. I don't want a Kaler.
Right.
And if somebody brought that to me, I would have that same kind of effect that someone might see over a 1959 Les Paul.
Right.
Like that's my thing. It's kind of like, when you find your bands, and you may grow up listening to the music of your parents or your older brother and all that, but then you find that thing that like, oh, this is the song of my people. And it's like, that was, and it wasn't just because it was pointy. It was because it was kind of, maybe advanced. It was cool. It was made for people that wanted to play
evocative.
It is. And so that's really what I love, but I'm also aware that that's what Jackson Guitars does. And that's what they need to keep doing. So knowing that the general buying public is pretty conservative in their tastes, as far as, they might like something, but, I'm not buying it. Yet.
Yeah.
And so I try and kind of ride this edge of maybe something that you're you're already kind of familiar with, but I'm gonna do some other things, and I'm gonna bring you over here, and it's gonna be okay. And it'll either be for you or it won't be. Just like, if you pick up a guitar in a store or wherever, and first thing you grab is the neck, and you can have this visceral like, nope. Or it's like, oh yeah, there we go. We all have those things. So, if I'm coming from an edgier side of town, maybe for some, definitely not for others, but I like to kind of take some of the aggressive, pointy looks of the guitars that I loved, add a little bit of refinement to them. In my own eyes, whether or not I actually do that is for other people to decide. But, I try and kind of, refine things a little bit and also make it something that will work for a bunch of different people because, you could take one of my guitars that has, the pointy Raven headstock on it and look like you're going to impale someone. You could play it at a jazz gig. It is going to be a versatile guitar. And that is another thing that's really important to me. And I'm really rambling, so we're going to stop here. We're going to read through.
Well, to be clear, I mean, it's not like you've got, a stock full of, like BC Rich, Warlocks and stuff here. I mean, these are still, they're rock and roll based guitars. They're not. This is not something that's unapproachable. And so when I said you're not playing it safe, it didn't mean that you're so far out on the fringe that people are going to be like, wow, that's cool. Keep doing that, pal. You are playing in the realm that, I think most of the people that we have on, they love guitars. It's not that they are engineers for the most part or anything like that. So they're not going to come at it like completely out of left field. They love guitars. Guitars have history, and we all started with familiar models. So when you get that creative inspiration, you're going to say, all right, what can I add to something that I already love? Is that fair to say?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So the guitar range that you have spans a lot of what we would call familiar-esque, beginnings, but you're pushing them a little bit farther than a lot of other people do.
I would agree. I would also go so far to say, like, you can look at the Raven model, which people might say it's got its base in a Firebird, and while it does, it's the second generation of it in that mine, like the footprint of a Raven for me starts with Jackson's version of a Firebird, which is a very different guitar from a Gibson Firebird, even though it might be a similar perimeter and a similar silhouette. If you pick that guitar up, they're incredibly different. And the same thing, like if you took a Raven and then you went and played a Firebird, they're completely different guitars. You could say the same with the 71, which is, if I had to, I think a 71 is the most Sully of all Sully guitars.
Okay.
Because that one, for me, I spent 4 years on the design, and it was really based out of dissatisfaction with the classic iconic single cut. I always wanted one. I had a few. I never kept them. And one of the things that I did when I was active on my YouTube channel is I found this basket case Les Paul Studio with a broken headstock, and like the toggle switch was relocated, and it was truly an abandoned project. It was just sand. I mean, it looked like a bear played it, and I did a series where I'm just going to, so this is my last ditch effort. I'm going to take this carcass and I'm going to, put my own spin on it and kind of make it, I'm going to make myself like one of these. And I documented the whole thing, and it was fun. But when it was done, I'm like, I realized it was a scale length. I'm not the smallest person. I'm not the biggest person in the world. I'm not the smallest person in the world. But short scale guitars, I get real congested, and it's just not fun for me to play. Mm-hmm. So that to me was a starting point. Like, okay, the scale, and then what are some other aspects of that particular guitar that didn't work for me? And it's the fact that you could snap a headstock just by looking at it, or various other construction methods, or not construction methods necessarily, but I want some more contours. I want something a little different. And I started just kind of drawing, and I would, I draw and I make some changes to it, and I just let it breathe for a while. And for me, that's kind of the best way to work out a design. Is you kind of you do something, you go away, and you come back to it, and you see if you still like it. And then once you get it to the point where you got to make a decision here. Are you going to move forward with this or not? And so I'm like, yes. So I'm going to start making some templates, and then going from a sketch, a literal sketch on a piece of paper, to some MDF body templates. I'm like, well, that doesn't really look like how I thought it would. And, you make some changes to that. And then eventually you make the thing. And there are things like, well, how do I want this neck joint to feel? How do I want this contour to look? And how do I want these sorts of things to happen? And a lot of that you find out just by continuing to make the thing. So usually the first five guitars of any particular model is where I'll have like the most differences. And they kind of just refine as you go. But yeah, the 71 that is absolutely the most me.
Gotcha. Well, hopefully everybody's at the site looking and or listening or checking out Instagram right now. One of the things that I really like about the designs that you have is that there's kind of like two sides of rock and roll for me, or like one is the dirty and the just the raw. You're talking about a bear, and it's like a hungry black bear.
Yes.
Right. And then the other side is the part that, like, when we go to a show, we want to be entertained. When we're looking at somebody on stage, or I think the idea of being on stage, there is a permission that most people don't get. If you're up there and you are able to take that to just pushing something to the next level, and taking that permission and saying, okay, that guy, they took all that permission, they're using it. Good on them. It's like kind of like when you're on the freeway and you're driving your Toyota or whatever, and there's somebody in a sweet, like, Porsche or other exotic, and they're going the speed limit, and you're like, right. But if somebody like goes for it, you're like, yeah, man, do it. Yeah. You have it, use it. Not everybody can be on the stage. So when my idea is in some instances, when you are up there, it's like, use it. And some of your designs really enable you to get to that level again, without it being like in ridiculous land or, threatening to kill somebody with your guitar. So
that's really nice.
You got some nice flair.
Thank you. That's very kind of you. And I really don't take that lightly. That's because that, quite frankly, everybody's got a catchphrase, and Sully guitar is built by rock and roll.
Yeah.
And I had this thought come to me a few months ago or so. And while, to look at me, it's like, oh, okay, 80s guy. I don't listen to Poison all day. There's nothing wrong with listening to Poison all day. If you want to listen to Poison all day, I just don't. But the guitars and the thing that I'm trying to convey to people, and you kind of touched on it, so that's a good thing for me, is like, if you were there's a sense of fun that I think is not necessarily missing, but I'm trying to bring that.
A little bit of showmanship.
Yes. I mean, I grew up a Kiss freak and, and loved Motley Crue but if you were, the thing that I realized was like, if you were to take the essence of Shout at the Devil, Blizzard of Oz, Duran Duran's Rio, maybe even the Go-Go's Beauty and the Beat, mix that together, maybe throw in a little T-Rex, you get what I'm trying to do.
Totally get
because
that.
Like I loved all of that stuff. And there is a sense of, we started doing this with sparkles, years ago, and sparkle finishes are by no means a new thing. But we started doing it when it wasn't, about like 6
it's a statement still. I mean, it is.
It's a statement. And a lot of people would say, we do like a big sparkle pink something or other. Like I could never play a pink sparkle guitar. And I always say, I couldn't disagree with you more. Of course you can. You just have to decide that you can.
Right.
And no matter whatever you
have to give
decide,
yourself permission.
Yeah. So, there is a series of, I want to try and add some fun to things. I want to try and, make you feel like you put this guitar on and like you could either play in your bedroom as much as you want to. There's nothing wrong with that. Or go play on a stage and not necessarily look like everyone else.
Yeah.
So, but then on the other hand, the guitar has to look great. It's got to sound great. It's got to play great, but it's also got to get out of the way of the player. Because when it really comes down to it, that's, really the most important part of it. Agreed.
In that same vein, the first thing I did with the band that I started was I went over to Tony and I said, Tony, I need you to do some work, sonny boy. And I got 3 black guitars and I said, I need heavy gold sparkle pick guards on all of these.
Yes.
And honestly, like with the show, I always get asked about them and I feel like I'm fulfilling my dream up there. And it's just,
you are.
I don't, and that so you're just kind of help you do that. I appreciate that about that.
Happy to do it.
So Sully, I had a question for you. Why do you hate pick guards so much?
It's funny. I bought a pick guard from you about 15 years ago. It was a Strat pick guard. It was a Strat pick guard with a Jakey Lee pick guard route. So pickup route. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
So that's why he hates them. Great, nice one.
Yeah, so I spoiled you on pick guards, huh?
You did. You ruined it for everyone else. But no. So for me, now certain models that I have absolutely have to have a pick guard. Most of them do not, and it kind of comes from my upbringing. In that sense of like the best pizza place is the one that you grew up with. Like all of the guitars that I grew up with or that I really liked, they didn't really have pick guards.
Yeah.
And right now, what's funny, was working on finishing up these 4 guitars here. It's a 622 model, which is not really on the website. And this is we'll take a whole other explanation direction, so I'll stop. But they have pick guards on them, and because it's a ease of manufacture and that sort of thing, and they're Strat based, and I'm putting all this stuff together, and I've got the thing loaded, and I'm trying to get it like in, and there's always a little wire that's stuck underneath, and it's hard to get at because I've already wired the bridge ground. I'm like, what? Why? No. So while I may not really enjoy pick guards on all of the models, like to me, a Stardust needs to have one. I've made one without it, and I thought it would be weird, and it wasn't because of the overall picture. But they have their place. I will say, however, and this is maybe even more controversial, that Bigsby's, I hate them. Absolutely hate them. I will never, ever, under any circumstances whatsoever, put any of those old timey leg brace looking things on one of my guitars.
Like a crutch.
Yeah. And they're just, you gotta have like a tetanus shot hourly for just to get close to it. It's like, no. They have their place, just not on my guitar.
Yeah.
Right.
Nice.
Well, they're for tremolo anyway, man. Your guitars are for dive bombs.
Well, they're for whatever you want to play.
Sure. But I mean, when I look at your guitars, I'm like, yeah, Randy Rhoads, and all that kind of stuff. So
that's cool. So, what as far as the guitar building goes, what is when you get down to it? What is your favorite aspect during the build?
My favorite part of it is when it looks like a thing. I like it when I've recently transitioned to I got a CNC last year. So up until this point, I'd been doing all this stuff, bandsaw routers and all that stuff, and I still do that to a certain extent. But no matter how whatever is doing the cutting out, no matter how that happens, when I can kind of put a neck in a neck slot and it looks like a thing, that's really one of my most favorite parts. I know that a lot of guys that build really enjoy neck shaping. I've never enjoyed neck shaping.
Really?
Yeah, no, it's a lot of people say, oh, it's just so meditative. And I think, well, maybe if you're not doing it for a living. And if you're doing it as a hobby, and when I say that, I did not mean that as a derogatory kind of thing whatsoever. But even when I wasn't doing it for a living, I still didn't really like shaping necks because it just of all of the things in the books that you can read and the directions that you can find, the neck shaping really isn't one of those things that's easy to find. And to go one further, like if you want to take a body, if you want to make a body, you take a body blank, you've got your templates, you draw out your center line, you trace out your template, you cut it out, and then you trim it to size with a router. Then you go ahead and, so on and so forth. You're doing this very thematic. There are ways that I learned how to, with various lines, and you're putting facets in a rectangular shaped thing, and eventually you keep making facets, and then now it's a rounded thing. But yeah, I've never really enjoyed that part of it. And I don't care what anyone says. Nobody likes sanding. And the job is mostly sanding and problem solving.
Should have been a plumber.
Right. Well, I'd probably be making a lot more money if I got into plumbing.
Well, cool, man. We really appreciate you sharing all this stuff. Do you have any? Is there any new models or anything that we should be on the lookout for?
There are some things that I have in the process. One of them are these 4 little guitars that it's a 622, and when they're released, it's going to be like, well, okay, I don't really care. Everybody makes these, and that's true. But this particular thing, while I have the customs that are made by me in my garage in Dallas, I also have a production line that's made in South Korea. Mm-hmm. And the Conspiracy Series guitars, those are all very well made. You can take them on the road. People do. And they're all priced around $1,100-$1,200. Right. They have a lot of similar features that I put on my guitars, like stainless steel frets, and the pickups are well into my specs. I try and do some fun finishes. So they're speaking
of the finishes, as you're talking about that, I would, if you haven't gotten over to the site yet, one of the most fun parts about this is when he gets into the finishes. You do a great job of making somebody want these guitars. I mean, honestly,
good.
You can't not look at this and go, well, dang it, I need to have this champagne sparkle. I mean, for real, that's amazing.
Let me just, everyone does. And the thing that's really a drag about champagne sparkle is that it's tough to photograph. That is the one color that I have yet to get sick of. Whenever we've done a guitar in champagne sparkle, I just go, It's just, I love that there's this little, it's the same thing, like another reason why I love Shoreline Gold so much, versus like a more traditional gold. It has this like platinum kind of sheen to it.
Yeah.
And it's
not yellow.
It's refined.
Yeah.
And it's as subtle as the being subtle. So as much of a as subtle as you can get with being a big sparkly thing. But yeah, I love it. And then the one thing that's also on that page, if you're in the finishes section of like the what we do page, it's hard to capture in photos. It's hard to capture in videos, but there's a thing that we do. It's kind of called our Glamazon finishes, where we'll take, I think there's a Glamazon 71 Trello there, and it's, a nice, like a honey burst kind of thing.
It's so good looking,
and then, but then we put a very, very, very faint amount of gold pearl on the top only. And it will, depending on the angle, it will light up like it's almost opaque. Certain angles, you won't see it at all. It's like a lip gloss. It's a little bit of a shimmer, and that's the Glamazon stuff really makes me happy. We'll be doing a lot more of them, and it's pretty.
I mean, that is a pretty remarkable looking finish. That guitar, you have a Glamazon gold burst in here that is just absolutely stunning. So well done.
Thank you. We do our best.
And also, I love the copy on your site. It's great. It's like you're talking to me right now, except I'm on your site, and that's cool. Yeah.
I mean,
people tend to get really uptight on that, so I appreciate that.
I don't know. There's a lot of places that you can get the boilerplate stuff. I remember reading there was an article or a column that Joel Dudzik had written talking about like luthier boilerplate, and it's hand selected woods and hand rubbed oiled finishes, and like how else are you going to rub a finish? I mean, it's like hand selected tone woods again. We pick them on a forklift, really. I mean, I go to the place, they get a forklift, and they bring this pallet down, and I say, yeah, that one looks good. And I mean, it's a little bit more involved than that, but not much. But yeah, I mean, there is a lot of that. And it's one of these things that has been very helpful to me over the years of doing this is, when you're a small business, or in my case, kind of microscopic, you have to pretty much be the face of your business. I'm fortunate in that I'm a bit of a cartoon character, and I'm a bit of, and that's a little marketable. And the thing that is important for us as small business owners, that if we're all on Facebook, we're all on Instagram, we're all fighting very, very, very hard for space on someone's feed. It used to be a little bit easier when I first started, and I was fortunate and reaped those rewards. But now it's a pretty much a bare knuckle fight to gain any kind of ground on a daily basis.
Oh yeah.
And if you can communicate on your website or however you're facing the public in a manner that is relatable and genuine, and it helps them know, like, and trust you, that does go a long way. Because no matter what, with the products that we buy as consumers, whether it's shoes or dog food or whatever, there's a reason that we chose that, and it's because we felt some sort of connection to it. Otherwise, we wouldn't have bought it, and that's it's important. So I'm glad that the website reads like it's someone speaking with you. Quite frankly, I really need to work on it, but there's only so much time in a day.
You got a leg up on a lot of people. So
thank you.
Speaking of leg up, Jared.
Stirrups.
This is a good one, everybody. Hang on.
I don't know if there's any stirrups big enough for me, man. Anyway, let's go to our little segment on the show we call Would You Rather? This week's Would You Rather. Let's talk rare guitars. These are two of the rarest and exotic guitars ever made. Number one, the Gibson Moderne. Is that how do you say it? Modern,
sure.
Modern.
Let's just go with that.
Modern.
Yeah.
In 1957, Ted McCarty, he was in charge of Gibson's at the time of the thing. He applied for the design
of the thing.
Right.
Why is that funny? It is, though.
The thing, and the little thing in Kalamazoo with the smokestack that they took down. Yeah. But he applied for these patents of 3 guitar shapes: the Flying V, the Explorer, and a third design without a title. Later, the third design became known as the Moderne.
Actually, it was not the Explorer at the time; it was the Futura.
The Futura. Okay, yeah. Thank you, Tony. The Flying V and the Explorer went into. Futura. That's right. You are so smart.
Okay, anyways. It's the Explorer, everybody. Just keep going.
Right. Is it the thing? Yeah. Into limited production in 1958 and 1959. And they were reissued extensively in the years following. The Moderne, however, was not so lucky. It was never really put into production. Although it was never a mass produce, Ted McCarty and various other Gibson factory workers remember that there were anywhere from 1 to 6 prototypes of the Gibson Moderne made in the factory. But despite their testaments, the fact remains that a Moderne has yet to surface almost 60 years later.
An original from back in 57, 58.
That's right. No originals are known to exist. There is a 1982 reissue Moderne on Reverb for $10,000.
Yeah,
so
they reissued him in the early 80s. And that's just an example of one that has recently surfaced. They were re-released again in the 20 teens. Again, not in mass, but the earliest of that model you can get is from the early 80s, and at a handsome price, my friends.
Yeah. So
now for anybody that isn't familiar with this shape, Tony, could you describe the shape real quick?
Well, it's
my segment. Tony, would you describe the shape real quick for everyone?
Only if you want me to.
Yes, please.
So I guess you would call it kind of maybe a cross between a Flying V and like a Flying V with the lower horn chopped off, or the lower part of the V chopped off and kind of rounded over.
It reminds me of Gumby.
Well, the headstock is definitely Gumby-ish. That's for sure.
Yes.
It doesn't look good, man.
But yeah, I guess it was meant for players that didn't want the big Flying V or Futura / Explorer bodies.
Piece of driftwood.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Something to consider back in when these were being made, the space age was around, and the early what we would consider mid-century art and architecture was really beginning to take hold. So, maybe you've seen old like tables that have like little boomerang shapes all over them.
Yeah,
this is very reminiscent of the types of art that we were seeing, like fine art and stuff like that. So there's a lot of that is about as mid-century as you can get when you think about a guitar, I think.
Well, and also a lot of the design elements came from the auto industry too. Mm-hmm. Ted McCarty had hired a designer from, I don't know if it was from GM or Ford, I forget which, and brought him over and I think assisted with those. But I think the biggest contribution was that of the Firebird guitar.
Yeah, and Sully, you're familiar with the Moderne, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Well, to hold that thought now, our other up on the other podium here, we've got. Go ahead, Jared.
Travis Bean TB3000 wedge guitar. There were only 45 made of these, and they go for around $20,000 if you can find one. So you have two, right? You have two choices: the Moderne or the Travis Bean TB3000 wedge guitar. Tony, can you put some color to that, because I don't think I've ever seen one of these.
Oh, well, yeah, the Travis Beans had an aluminum neck, and the headstock was cut out with a capital T. Travis Beans then later were Kramer, the initial run of Kramer guitars used the same. I think maybe Kramer worked with Travis Bean, and had early Kramer guitars with aluminum necks were pretty much the same type of thing.
Mm-hmm. Now the body, the body looks like a Flying V, a little bit longer and a little narrower.
It's like a Flying A.
Yeah, it is. It is very well put. It's more like a Flying A.
There you go.
So there's no, they didn't cut out the V part. It's just, it's almost flat on the bottom. Yeah. And they have just a subtle, like I don't know if German carve is the right way. How would you say that, Sully?
Well, I had to Google this. So from what I can tell, it looks like it's got like almost from these pictures that I'm seeing, it look like it almost has like a radiused top, but there seems to be like a recurve, at least on some of this stuff. So I just don't know. I'm useless. Thank you.
So we've educated everybody here on these two absolutely rare guitars. So let's have a would you rather scenario.
Okay, fire away.
You're walking down the street and you stumble upon a garage sale, and your grandma gives you money for, she says, I know you like guitars a lot, but you can only come home with one guitar, and your grandma gave you a bunch of money to
she
go
loves you.
find it. Yeah, exactly. Because grandmas do. So you go to the garage sale, and there's a Modern there, original one. And then there's a Travis Bean, and they both cost the same amount of money.
And to be clear, we're talking about the Travis Bean Wedge.
Mm-hmm. The Wedge, the very rare, only 5 were made guitar. So what guitar are you going to take home?
Very curious.
So is the Modern one of the original ones, or is it
Yes.
the reissue? Okay, it's an original.
Absolutely one of the originals.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to sound like Ted Knight in a minute.
Danny.
Mario Fresca.
Lou.
So much more.
Yeah. And just if anybody's trying to find one of these on the internet, I mean, there's really only one artist that kind of made the Travis Bean Wedge guitar semi-famous, and that was Keith Levine from he was in Public Image Limited and a couple other bands. He was in the Clash momentarily, but he's really more known for his work in Public Image Limited, and that's when I think that's probably maybe the first and only time anyone's ever seen one on stage of these guitars. All right, Tony Baloney, go for it.
As unusual as the Travis Bean is, I think I've got to go with the Modern, because that is, it's like up there with the Gretsch White Penguins and a couple of other models that are, somewhat legendary, kind of like the Loch Ness Monster. People have claimed to have seen it, but no one knows for sure. I mean, I like the shape of the Modern better than the Travis Bean, so I'm going that route. That's what I want.
Okay. Jared?
It's really tough because I know what pickups they put in that Modern, and in that era they would be real PAFs. So that's kind of tempting. However, I think I'm going to go with the Travis Bean this time, just to have something different, just for the just for the heck of it.
Yeah,
I'll do Travis Bean this time.
Okay, all right. Let's see, Sully. How about you?
Well, I have a couple of questions that will help. Well, maybe just one question that will help me make my decision. So now we find both of these guitars, and you see this Gibson Moderny, and we're stipulating that it's real.
Well, so let's be clear. I mean, that if that was the case, I mean, this would be like a dang near $1 million guitar. So let's make it the 80s version. How about that? Because both of these were made in early 80s and late 70s.
Okay,
early 80s.
yeah, that actually makes more sense.
Yes.
Okay, that's
I'm still going with the modern.
Okay. Because they're both 80s, and this isn't one of those situations where it's like you can buy it, prove it, and then sell it. We're stuck with it. I've learned that I've developed a Gibson allergy, so I would go with the wedge.
Yeah. And to be clear, I think this is like around 77 that this was done. So, but that's okay. Because that's fine. We're close enough.
Sure.
All right. And I too am going to go with that Travis Bean wedge.
Give it up for the wedge.
It looks.
Yeah.
It's just, there's no other guitar that even remotely looks like it. And it doesn't look repulsive to me. I think the modern is just like, man, that's just not good weird.
And,
well, yeah. I guess the good thing about the wedge is if you did take it on like a canoe trip and lost one of your oars, it would be very useful.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
The other thing that I like about it is that it is very, it's difficult to capture the idea of rock and roll and future at the same time without ending up with something potentially ridiculous or unusable. And there's a classic thing to this that feels like when you look at that, it's going to be like some kind of like post-punk thing that is not trying too hard to be future, but by its nature, it's gonna exude that. And I really love that about this particular guitar.
I could see that.
Yes.
I think it would make a great Devo guitar.
It would.
Yeah.
Or I could have seen, I mean, the Cars, I could definitely see that being played in the Cars.
Sure.
And we could all probably list out a whole bunch of other bands, but your point is taken, Tony. It's like it's Devo, it's the Cars, it's Public Image Limited. It's like these bands that were like really pushing in different ways, and some great.
Yeah,
So-
I would say I even like maybe Kansas or the Doors.
or Foghat. Jeez. Oh boy. All right. We're going to thank a few people, and then we're going to check in with Sully again really quick here.
All righty. Well, at this point of the show, as we say, we like to thank a special group of people. These would be our executive producers. And someone out there, I'm sure, is saying, what did he say? Executive producer? How can I become an executive producer? I'm going to tell you how. You go over to patreon.com/the Guitar Knobs, and you'll find a couple of different levels in which you can participate and become an active patron of this podcast. That makes everything possible so we can continue to bring the podcast to you. All the levels come with a great prize thank you package. Things like barefoot buttons and picks and stickers and T-shirts and keychains and giveaways and all the good stuff.
Giveaways.
I love giveaways.
But the executive producer level, in addition to all that great swag and stuff that you can proudly display and show off to your friends, there's one thing that executive producers get in addition to all that. And Jared, what is that?
You get to have your name read on the thing.
Your name read on the thing. And that's what I'm going to do right now. So a special thanks to these executive producers: Mr. Tom Barazin, Martin Cliff, John Daly, Chris Kearney, Darren Gregory, Doug Christ, Michael Van Zant, Ken Sayers, Brian Robison, Michael Senchuk, Stefan Lamb, Johnny Knowles, Anthony Lathrop, John Anglin, Tyler Bray, Brad Partridge, Chris Heidel, John Esterle, Tim Nowak, Doug Gann, Justin Jones, Brett Alexander, James White, Matt Hart, Liam Martin, James Pennington, and Richard Kendall.
Tony, I think you missed somebody.
Oh, I'm looking a little further down the list. There was a gentleman who was our executive producer and is now in a very special group called our Grand Poobahs. Oh, wow, that was nice. So the Grand Poobahs are just a step above our regular executive producers. And a special thanks, they get to wear a
It's a big
fez.
step above. Let's just be honest. That's a big step.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. I was trying not to make it so,
Well,
I don't know, hoity-toity. But anyhow, they get, in addition to all that stuff and their name read on the thing, they get to wear a very special fez.
Yes.
The official fez. And I do believe the bylaws of the podcast say that they have to wear that fez while
Yes.
listening to the podcast. Is
That's
that true?
right.
and even more rewards too.
And
Yep.
more rewards. Yeah, you'll be greatly surprised. You'll be
Yes.
pleasantly surprised.
In
So-
fact, let me interrupt.
Oh,
I want to announce that Wolf and I, Wolf of Wolf Tone Pickups, are making a collaboration set of pickups that we are giving away to one of our patrons.
Aha.
wow, that's
And we'll-
well,
Yep, we're going to do 5 sets, and 1 set will be given away. And I'll let Todd handle that because he's very good at it, and I am not.
So are they going to be Brandon Wolf pickups or?
Yeah.
Brandon Wolf Tone, Brandon Wound Wolf Tone. I don't
Sure.
know. We're just going to mash a set together and
Mash it.
They'll be great.
Great.
They'll be
Most excellent.
So Tony, who did we leave off on that list above?
Well, let's just say a very special thanks for an incredible upgrade from Mr. Steve Keys.
Right on. Thank you, Steve.
Thanks, Steve. You are in very good company because in addition to Steve, we have Jonathan Jerusik, Corey Nigro, David Kaminga, Cody Lane, Cody Foster, Sean S., Tommy Manasco, Mark Garton, Christopher Marshall, and Adam Johnson.
All right. Thank you guys all so much for your support. It means the world to us, and it really, truly helps us keep this show afloat.
all you patrons. Yep.
It's just,
Thank you.
It's a great morale booster for us too. Much obliged. Sully,
Yes.
where can people find and buy your awesome guitars?
Well, SullyGuitars.com. There's also, just go to Reverb. Search Sully Guitars on Reverb. Go to, my page. Because, that's what we're really just talking about is me right now. There's some available from other people. But, to get one from me, I'll say hi. But SullyGuitars.com. It's a good place to start. It's good for you.
It's like soup.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like
Does
nothing
your body
bad.
good, baby.
That's right. It's like,
Yep.
Cool. Tony Baloney, where can people find you?
Just go over to pickguardian.com, same as it ever was.
I did.
Yes, he did 15 years ago. I destroyed his view of pick guards for the rest of his life. Not really. But check out some of the stuff I have available for sale on there. 90% of what I do is custom work, so it's probably best to just drop me a line via email, and we can talk about the particulars, get you pricing, and get you taken care of.
Awesome stuff from over Tony's shop. Anything you can imagine, just about. Jared, where
Yep.
can people find you?
They can find me in Pataskala.
Uh-huh.
Actually, Brandon Wound Pickups. So if any of you out there are looking for a cool set of pickups to replace the boring things that you have in your guitar that you've been listening to forever, or if you have an old guitar and somebody changed out the pickups at some time, I can probably make you something that looks very close to original. That's one of the things that I really enjoyed doing.
And sounds like the original.
Yeah, pretty much. So rewinds, turnaround time for that is pretty quick. BrandonWildPickups.com. Check me out.
Perfect. You can shoot me an email, todd@theguitarknobs.com. You can also DM me on Instagram. And I will share the messages that I receive with Tony Baloney and Jared, and we love getting messages from everybody. And please send in your would you rather's. I know you guys have them, So send them to us. We'll read them.
Please. I will.
Yes. Jared will read them on the thing. Big, ginormous thanks to John Sullivan from Sully Guitars. We really had a great time with you today, man.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet. We'll have to have you on again for sure. Whenever we have great guests, we always like to have you back.
I gotta compete with Jeff for the Alec Baldwin of the show.
Exactly. All right, everybody. Well, make sure you go check out Sully Guitars. Have a great guitar week and subscribe.
Yeah.
What the hell? Well, get ready for some terrible jokes and some good guitar talk.
Should I just give you a shovel so you can dig in a little deeper there?
Drivers driving, whatever that is. And he...
More, please.
Okay, hang on. Thank you for catching that. I would look like an idiot.
More like an idiot.
Oh, dirty bugger.
Of all the podcasts that you've done, this is the most recent, and I appreciate it.
Hey.
Exactly. Well, that's it for these knobs. Please visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/theguitarknobs. Visit our website at theguitarknobs.com for all of our past episodes, 4 on the Floor blog, and other good stuff. You can connect with us on social too at our Facebook page and share your gear and stories on our Facebook group. Also, be sure to check out our Instagram at Guitar Knobs. Catch you next time.